The stars above Earth no longer blinked like they used to. They burned cold and sharp, hanging over a blackened world that no longer breathed. Below, Earth's surface was nothing but ash and broken stone, swirling in endless storms. High above it, Helios Station floated like a jewel, a shining ring of glass, steel, and energy. It was a place where hundreds of alien species gathered. Trade, politics, and survival wove together in its endless halls. Humans were rare now. Few had survived the fall. Fewer were trusted. Today, one of those rare humans had come. Helios Novak stood at the main docking bay, quiet and still, as the crowds flowed around him. He wore a simple dark suit, nothing fancy. His brown hair was streaked with gray, his face lined with time. His eyes, though, were strange. A deep green that seemed to look through walls. Dock workers gave him sideways glances. Traders whispered behind their hands. Some hurried away. He was used to it. With a small suitcase in one hand and a slim diplomatic badge in the other, Helios moved toward the inner gates of the station. Security bots scanned him without a word. Metal arms lifted and lowered, checking for weapons. Finding none, they allowed him through. Helios Station was busy, even more so today. Banners floated high, printed with symbols of many species: the scaled dragons of Drathis, the silver web of the Thrin, the cloud mark of the Vaulters. Humans had no symbol here. Their place on the banners had been erased long ago. Helios walked slowly, breathing in the heavy air of so many lives packed into one place. The walls were white and shining, but he could feel the rot underneath. Fear, greed, pride, all old things. A small group of station guards passed him. One of them, a blue-skinned Thrin soldier, sneered openly. "Relic," he muttered, as he brushed past. Helios said nothing. His steps stayed steady. His heart stayed calm. He had come for peace, after all. In the higher levels of the station, deep inside the council chambers, important people gathered. The Interstellar Council, rulers of 1,000 worlds, sat on wide stone thrones, speaking in low, worried voices. High Chancellor Varex Thal, tall and thin like a bent tree, tapped his long fingers against the council table. His sharp eyes gleamed with hatred. "The human is here," he said. His voice was cold. Helios Novak, a relic from a dead world. Around him, the other council members murmured. "Why has he come?" asked a soft, hissing voice from a Vaulter diplomat. "To beg for a place again," said Thal with a bitter smile. "But we will remind him what humans have lost, and why they must stay lost." Plans began to form in the council chamber. Dark plans. But down below, walking the crowded halls, Helios Novak already knew. The walls spoke to him. The broken stones of dead Earth still whispered his name. And somewhere deep in the ship's old bones, the air grew a little colder. The halls of Helios Station were a maze. Long tunnels twisted around giant marketplaces, gardens under glass, and cold steel chambers, where important deals were made in secret. The whole station was alive with voices, smells, and bright shifting lights. Helios Novak walked alone. He moved past a row of market stalls, where alien merchants shouted in many languages. Strange fruits glowed on one table. Mechanical pets chattered and blinked on another. Smells of spices, oils, and machine grease filled the air. Everywhere he went, people watched him. Some stared with wide eyes. Others pretended not to notice him at all. Whispers followed him like a shadow. "Is that a human? Shouldn't they be banned from here? Old monsters, that's what they are." Helios heard them all, but kept walking. His face stayed calm. His steps stayed slow and even. The air around him felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. The station itself seemed to know he had come. Tiny vibrations passed through the floor with every step he took. In the walls, in the wires, old energies stirred. Far above him, in the high tower of command, the council met again. Their private chamber was a dark place, lit only by soft blue lights. Tall chairs of polished stone circled a wide table. The air smelled of old leather and iron. High Chancellor Virex Thol stood at the center, his long coat sweeping the floor. "We cannot allow this human to speak freely," Thol said. His voice was sharp, like broken glass. "He will poison the minds of others with lies of peace. He will make them forget the wars humanity started." The council members nodded grimly. "He is here for diplomacy," said one soft voice, uncertain. "But he is still a human," Thol snapped. "Still dangerous." "What will you do?" another asked. Thol's thin lips curved into a smile. "Humiliate him. Break him, if needed. Remove him." There was a murmur of agreement. Guards were summoned. Plans were whispered. Traps were prepared. Back in the lower halls, Elias stopped by a long window. Outside, the burned remains of Earth hung in the blackness. Once it had been blue and green. Now it was gray, wrapped in poisonous clouds. He rested his hand lightly on the window. His eyes softened. "I remember," he whispered. "I remember when you lived." A small child, a Vaulter girl, with soft golden skin, tugged at his sleeve. She looked up at him, with wide silver eyes. "Are you really from Earth?" she asked. Elias smiled gently. "Yes, a long, long time ago." The girl's mother hurried over, pulling her away with a fearful glance at Elias. He bowed his head politely, and moved on. The walls seemed to breathe around him. Faint voices only he could hear whispered through the station's bones. "Waker of the old woods. Bringer of ends." Elias ignored them. He had lived with the whispers for centuries. He would live with them for a while longer. Ahead, giant metal doors loomed, carved with the symbol of the Interstellar Council. Tomorrow, he would stand before them and speak. Tomorrow the council would try to destroy him. They had no idea what they were waking. The council chamber was the heart of Helios Station. It was a vast round room with high glass walls, showing the blackness of space beyond. The floor was polished stone, smooth enough to see your reflection. At the center stood the great council table, a huge ring made of silver and gold, where leaders of 100 worlds gathered. Today the air inside the chamber was thick with tension. Delegates from many species filled the curved rows of seats. Their colorful robes, shining armor, and flowing robes made the room look like a swirling sea of colors. Soft voices murmured as the doors opened, and Elias Novak walked in. He wore the same simple suit. No medals, no armor, just a plain badge on his chest. Human diplomatic envoy. Some delegates turned their heads away. Others leaned closer to get a better look at him. A few, mostly younger ambassadors, stared at him with open curiosity, as if they were seeing a ghost. High Chancellor Virex Thol sat at the highest seat, towering above the others. His sharp features twisted into a smile as Elias approached the center of the room. "Welcome, Envoy Novak," Thol said loudly. His voice echoed around the chamber. "We are honored to witness such a rare sight. A human." The way he said human made it sound like an insult. There was a ripple of nervous laughter. Elias bowed his head politely. "Thank you, High Chancellor. I come in peace to speak for the few of my kind who still remain." Thol leaned forward slightly. "And what can your people offer us now?" "Stories of old wars. Lessons in destruction." More laughter. Cruel, sharp. Elias raised his head. His face was calm. His voice was steady. "We offer peace. We offer friendship. We offer memory." Thol smiled wider, showing small sharp teeth. "Memory," he said. "Memory is a heavy thing to carry, Novak. Are you sure you want us to remember?" Another council member, a vaulter with glittering silver eyes, spoke up. "I remember Earth ships burning entire worlds. I remember human weapons that shattered moons. And I remember," said a Thren diplomat, "how you turned on each other in the end. Burned your own planet to dust." The room buzzed with anger and mockery. Elias listened without blinking. Then he spoke softly. "Memory is not only for blame. It is also for forgiveness. For rebuilding." Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others sneered openly. Thol stood up slowly. His long coat swept the floor. "Forgiveness is easy to offer when you have nothing left to lose," he said. "Tell me, Novak, if we refuse your offer, what will you do?" Elias smiled gently. "Nothing. I am not here to threaten. Only to remind you that even the smallest embers can start great fires." There was a moment of silence. Then Thol laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound that made the room feel smaller, tighter. "You hear that?" Thol said to the room. "The human speaks in riddles, in warnings." He looked down at Elias with a glittering eye. "We will listen to your proposal tomorrow. For today, enjoy Helios Station. Enjoy your memories." Elias bowed again and turned to leave. As he walked out, he felt the weight of 100 eyes on his back. Some were full of hate, some were full of fear. A few, very few, held a spark of respect. Behind him in the council chamber, plans were already being whispered. Plans to shame him, plans to crush him. But as Elias stepped back into the wide halls of Helios Station, the walls whispered again. "They do not know. They do not see. The forest walks among them." Elias kept walking. Tomorrow would come, and with it the storm. The next day came quickly. The council chamber was even more crowded than before. Word had spread through Helios Station. A human was here. A real one. A relic from a dead world standing in the heart of power. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. Elias Novak walked calmly into the chamber. His dark suit was neat. His steps slow and steady. He carried no weapon, wore no armor. Only his quiet eyes showed any sign of strength. Above him, High Chancellor Varric Thol watched with cold satisfaction. Today the trap would be sprung. As Elias stepped into the center of the chamber, a group of station guards moved closer. Their armor gleamed under the lights. They carried stun rods and pulse rifles. Their faces were hard without emotion. The crowd shifted, whispering. First Al raised his hand for silence. "Thol, Novak," he said smoothly. "Before we continue with your petition, the council must ensure security." Elias tilted his head slightly. "Security?" he asked, voice calm. Thol smiled. "Standard procedure. A simple search. Surely you understand." There was a low chuckle from some delegates. They all knew it was a lie. This was no standard procedure. It was a test. A show of power. An attempt to humiliate him before every eye in the galaxy. Elias said nothing. He spread his arms slightly, showing he had nothing to hide. The guards stepped forward. They moved roughly, patting him down, scanning him with harsh lights. One of them shoved him slightly, pretending it was an accident. Another whispered under his breath, "Filthy relic." Elias stayed silent. Then, pretending to find something suspicious, one guard pulled out a small, smooth stone from Elias's coat pocket. It was harmless. A memory token from Earth. It held no weapon, no threat. Thol leaned forward, his voice sharp. "What is this?" "A piece of home," Elias answered softly. "A reminder." Thol laughed loudly. "A relic carrying relics. How fitting." More laughter rose from the council members and the audience. Cameras floated above, recording everything. The humiliation was complete. But Elias still did not react. He looked up at Thol with those deep green eyes. Steady, unbroken. For a moment, something flickered across Thol's face. A shadow of unease. The guards stepped back, and Elias lowered his arms. He retrieved the stone gently, placing it back into his pocket. "You have searched me," Elias said calmly. "Shall we proceed with the business of peace?" The council chamber grew quiet. Thol hesitated, then forced a smile. Of course, let us continue." But the air had changed. It was subtle, but real. Some delegates shifted nervously. Others glanced around, as if feeling something they could not name. The lights above flickered once, just a blink. The floor seemed to hum underfoot, just a tremor. Only Elias stood steady, as if he belonged here more than any of them. Behind the fake smiles and careful words, the council had drawn first blood. They had made their move. They had woken something old, something they did not understand. And soon they would pay the price. The council chamber sat heavy with tension. After the public search, the council thought they had won. The human had been shamed. Now they expected him to beg, to leave with his head bowed. Elias Novak stood at the center of the room, calm and silent. His hands rested at his sides. His eyes moved slowly from face to face. Not angry, not fearful, just watching. High Chancellor Virix Thul leaned forward. "You may speak, Envoy Novak," Thul said, his voice smooth and sharp. "Or have you lost your tongue with your dignity?" There was a ripple of laughter. Elias lifted his head slightly. He spoke, voice soft but clear. "I came for peace. I came with an open hand. You have answered with knives and jeers." The chamber grew quieter. The lights above flickered again, longer this time. A cold draft moved through the air. The glass walls of the chamber creaked softly. Thul forced a laugh. "Are we supposed to be afraid of old human words?" Elias smiled. A small, strange smile. "No," he said. "You should be afraid of what you have called." In the blink of an eye, the temperature dropped. Frost formed along the edges of the council table. The breath of every living thing in the room turned to mist. Delegates looked around, confused and frightened. The ground under Elias's feet cracked, tiny lines spider-webbing outward. Strange whispers filled the air, not in any known language but deep and old, full of anger and sorrow. The walls trembled. One of the guards near Elias screamed and dropped his weapon. His armor cracked as invisible hands seemed to crush it. He stumbled backward, eyes wide with terror, and ran. Another collapsed, clutching his head, muttering nonsense. Chaos erupted. Delegates shouted. Some scrambled for the exits. Others froze, unsure what to do. High Chancellor Thul stood, his face pale. What are you?" he demanded. Elias stepped forward slowly. "I am the thing you forgot," he said. His voice was not just one voice anymore. It was many, old, hollow and vast. "I am the fire you buried. I am the shadow in your bright halls. I am the forest that walks." The glass walls of the chamber darkened, frost creeping across them. The station's gravity wavered. Some floated slightly off the ground before slamming back down as the system struggled to correct itself. Delegates panicked. Some guards tried to raise their rifles. Their weapons melted into puddles of molten metal before they could fire. Elias raised his hand, palm outward, without touching them. The giant council table shattered, splitting down the middle with a thunderous crack. Pieces of silver and gold flew into the air, spinning like leaves in a storm. Virix Thul stumbled back, eyes wide with horror. "You wanted to see human power," Elias said, walking closer. "Now you will remember it." Thul fell to his knees, hands up in surrender. "Mercy," he cried. "Please." Elias stopped. He looked down at the broken chancellor with a gaze as cold as the void outside. "You had your chance," he said simply. But he did not kill Thul. He did not destroy Helios Station. Instead, Elias lowered his hand. The frost melted. The whispers faded. Gravity returned to normal. Slowly, order began to creep back into the ruined chamber. Elias turned away without another word. The council had been broken, not by weapons but by fear, by the memory of what humans had once been, and what they could still become. He walked out of the council chamber alone. No one dared to stop him. The council chamber lay in ruins. Pieces of the shattered table still floated in the air, slowly spinning under the broken lights. Delegates sat slumped in their seats or crouched behind pillars, too stunned to move. The air smelled of burnt metal and fear. High Chancellor Virix Thul remained on his knees. His proud robes were torn. His sharp face was pale and hollow. The leader who once ruled with fear now shook like a leaf in the wind. The guards who had searched Elias were gone, either unconscious, fled, or worse. Only silence remained, thick and heavy. Slowly the other council members began to rise, looking around in confusion and terror. "What have we done?" whispered the vaulter diplomat, his silver eyes wide. No one answered. The official recorders, Tiny floating cameras had captured everything. The whole galaxy would soon see the Council humiliated. The Council's strength was broken. Its power shattered like the table they once ruled from. In the wide halls of Helios Station, word spread faster than fire. The human had not begged. He had not been weak. He had unleashed something ancient and terrifying. Merchants, travelers, and soldiers whispered in every corridor. Some looked at the humans still living on Helios Station with new fear. Others looked with awe. A few, the wisest ones, bowed their heads in quiet respect. Elias Novak walked alone through the station's long silver corridors. No one dared approach him now. Doors slid open for him without a touch. Security drones powered down and drifted aside. The station itself seemed to sense his passage. On the high observation deck, Elias stopped. Through the giant glass windows, the remains of Earth floated in darkness, broken but not forgotten. He placed the smooth memory stone from his pocket onto a small ledge. It caught the light and glowed faintly. "For the ones who remember," he said softly. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. A young ambassador from a minor world, no older than 20, stood nervously, hands shaking. "Sir," she said, voice small, will you destroy us?" Elias turned slowly. His face was kind, but in his eyes was the deep green of ancient forests, wild and endless. "No," he said. "I came for peace." The girl let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. But Elias added, "Remember, this peace is not the same as weakness. Forget that lesson, and the forest will come again." He touched 2 fingers to his forehead in a gesture of farewell. Then he turned and walked toward the docking base. He did not look back. Behind him, the broken council tried to rebuild. Behind him, 1,000 new whispers were born. Elias Novak was no longer just a human diplomat. He was a legend, a warning, a memory that the stars would never forget. The docking bays of Helios Station were quieter than usual. Normally, ships came and went in a constant stream, engines roaring, cargo moving, voices shouting. But now, a strange silence filled the air. Everyone knew who was leaving. Elias Novak stood at the edge of Docking Bay 7, waiting for his transport. It was a simple ship. No banners, no guards, no honors, just a quiet vessel, like the man himself. The smooth stone he had placed earlier, the memory of Earth, still glowed faintly under the wide glass dome. A few curious workers stopped and looked, whispering to each other. They all felt it, the weight of history being made. Elias turned once, looking back down the long bright halls of Helios Station. In those halls, fear still lingered, but so did something else. Respect. And something even stronger. A quiet understanding that the galaxy had changed. He heard soft footsteps behind him. It was the young ambassador again. The same girl who had spoken to him after the council broke. She stood a few feet away, not daring to come closer. "Will we see you again?" she asked. Elias smiled. A small, sad smile. "Perhaps," he said. "When the stars forget, I will remind them." The ship's engines warmed with a low hum. The boarding ramp lowered with a soft hiss. Without another word, Elias stepped aboard. The ramp closed behind him. The ship lifted off, slowly at first, then faster, rising into the black ocean of space. It turned once, giving a final view of Helios Station and the burned Earth far below. Then it disappeared into the stars. In the council chamber, repairs began. The broken table would be rebuilt. New laws would be written. New fears would shape decisions. No one would forget the day the council tried to shame a human, and instead, shamed themselves. Whispers traveled across every world, every colony, every ship. "Baba Yaga walks again. Be careful whom you call weak. Be careful whom you awaken." On a small observation deck, the young ambassador pressed her hand against the glass, watching the stars. Softly, almost too softly to hear, she whispered, "The true monsters wear no crowns. They walk quietly, and leave shadows behind. And the stars, silent and endless, watched back.